weather. And what I'm hoping is that when cool weather comes,
Start again.
Start again. Okay. Happy September, everybody. Welcome to our Sunday live chat. Everybody's, I'm hoping, beginning to kind of put the summer behind us and begin to focus on our paintings for the cooler weather. I don't know why it happens that way, but sometimes it seems to happen that way. So while we're waiting for folks to come in and get, so that we have a substantial crowd to get started with, let me just remind you of what we offer and what you might want to do with it. I would like to remind you that we have the Academy. We haven't mentioned it very much lately, but we have the Academy, DianneMizeAcademy.com, and we right now, I've lost track, I think we probably have about maybe 15 to 20 courses there now. These are full-length courses. Most of them have at least 4 video lessons, and they are thorough. They're each, like our quick tips and other things we do, each addresses a single topic. It's not the kind of course where I'm just painting for you and talking through it just while I'm painting. We try to have these purposeful so that you can gain some real understanding of concepts we work with in painting. And you can do these at your own pace. It's not the kind of course where you have to wait and meet with a group. You can sign up for the course and you can take it at your own pace and your own speed. And there's a chance for me to give you feedback there if you need it. So check that out. If you haven't already checked out our Academy, Dianne Mize Academy, check that out. Of course, there's always our lessons site where most of you members are familiar with the lessons site. That's where you go get your free stuff, isn't it? But those of you who may be new to us or are not familiar with what we do, check that out too. We have 40 series. Each series has 4 lessons in it, but you don't have to even buy the whole series. You can simply buy 1 lesson at a time, and these are downloads, unlike the Academy where you do everything right there on the website. These are downloads, meaning you are when you buy it, you get an email, and the email has a link, and you click on the link and you download it. It's yours forever. Watch as many times as you want to. And if for some reason you lose your link on down the road, you can email our team and we'll send you a new one. So good stuff. We're having fun, have been having fun for nearly over 10 years now, doing these sorts of things, various and sundry, varieties of things to maybe try to get something available for everybody. Let me remind you also, those of you who are subscribers but not yet members, that you might consider becoming a member. If you can become a member for a month or 2, and if you don't like the benefits, you can drop it. I hate to say that, but it is the truth. But you become a member simply by clicking join wherever you are on YouTube, on our channel, or on one of our videos. Just click that word join, and it's only $4.99 a month. That's $4.99 a month, and what you get for that, you get 1 free lesson a month from the lessons website. You also get the members are the ones who are asking the questions on these YouTube chats that we have. We had to do that, as you hear me say it every time, and you're probably tired of hearing me say it, but because the traffic, the comments come in so fast when we allow everybody who's watching to ask questions that we can't keep up with them. So to kind of make that manageable, we're limiting the questions being asked to those who are members. So if you want to ask a question, you're not a member, just click the join button, become a member, and then see if you don't like it. So you get the free lesson, you get to ask questions during the discussion, you also get a free little tip every month. Let me make something clear. Now, when you become a YouTube member to our YouTube channel, that doesn't make you a member of the Academy or any of the other sites. We don't do members in the lesson sites, and the academy we do have an annual membership there. But this doesn't have anything to do with that. This is YouTube. YouTube doing its thing, and our taking advantage of what YouTube can do. So, all right, perhaps that's enough of that sort of introduction. Today's chat is going to be on something that everybody who picks up a brush and pushes paint needs to be aware of, and that is placing images. How do you know where to place your images? I don't make rules, as you know, so you're not going to get a bunch of rules you have to remember, but I'm going to show you some options and some ways to look at images that you might have and know what to do with them. So just in a minute or two, we're going to, or maybe less than a minute, we're going to play the intro video. The way these chats work, we begin every time with a video about 10, 12 minutes. This one I think is maybe a little over 10 minutes, where we introduce the concept. This is the way to think about this thing. And then if you have questions, members, you can ask your questions after the video's finished. Let's see what we've got down there. Some people are coming in saying hello to us. Mary Ellen, Jenny, Ellen, hello to all of you. Oh, they're saying to you too, Roger. Hi, Diane and Roger.
Hey there.
Yeah, everybody needs to know that Roger is behind the scenes here. He's the one that makes everything else look good. So, okay, I think we'll just go ahead and run the video, Roger, and then after the video, if you have to ask it in the chat, you can ask a question in the chat, but I don't know how you can ask a question in the chat and still pay attention to what's going on in the video. You know, I have trouble with that. Anyway, after the video, then we'll answer your questions and see what kind of trouble we can get into. Okay, run that video, Roger. For centuries, artists have been placing their images in all sorts of formats, but how they arrange their images in those formats follow the same kinds of principles. When we study these master artists, we discover that how they place those images goes a long, long ways towards determining how we perceive the image. Not only that, but whether we really enjoy looking at it. Even an image as simple as this, where we have the sea and a sunset sky reflecting in the sea, if it's not placed in a way that is more dynamic, we get bored very quickly looking at it. The reason this is so boring is that the edge right here is right in the center, and that between the top and this edge and the bottom are pretty much the same width, the same distance from each other. We humans like seeing variety, and we artists can provide that variety. We can change that space with something we call intervals, where the space between two intervals is unequal. The space between the edge of the sea here and the edge of the painting surface down here, and the space between the edge of the sea and the top of the painting surface here, if those two intervals are unequal, we have a much more dynamic spacing. Of course, with a subject like that being so simple, that alone would not guarantee it being an interesting painting. We might place a large boat in the painting. That makes it a lot more interesting. We notice, though, that when we do that, we have same size space between this edge and between this edge and this edge. That, too, is called an interval. And it's pretty boring with that boat sitting right in the middle and those two intervals on either side being the same size, we have two choices. We can either move the boat to one side or the other, or we can add other boats in there. Let's add a boat right over here. Well, now you can already see that that makes it a little more interesting. And we now have an unequal spacing between this boat and the edge, and between the other side of this boat and the edge of this boat. More entertaining. The eye wants to look at it a little longer. But still we have this empty space over here, and with having added this boat, makes this space feel a little imbalanced. So suppose we add another boat on that side. Of course, we could move either of those boats and change that spacing. We'd still have the same subject. Let's try, though, adding another boat on the other side. Now, that adds more information, and with those being different kinds of boats, makes it more interesting. But by being added where I put it, it has now those boring equal intervals. See, between here and here, and between here and here, it's just too much alike. They are a little bit unequal, but it's just too similar. Well, what if we change some things? Now, when we're placing images, or if we see this scene in front of us, and it interests us enough to paint it, we have some choices about placing images. We can rearrange the boat in the center. We can move it to the right. We can move it to the left. Or we can move the boat on the right and the boat on the left. Either or. Whatever we do, however we move those horizontally, we're going to have a different size spacing, which is going to make it a whole lot more interesting. Let's do some experimenting here. I'm looking at that boat on the right, and what I'd like to do is simply move it and show you what will happen. Now, if we park that boat right there, you see what we have? We have, again, equal spacing. So let's change the size of it. And now you see that begins to be a little bit more entertaining to the eye. We have an unequal space between here and here, and here and here. We have an unequal size or space between the edge here and the edge here of this boat compared to this one. And then this one over here is very much unequal. So we have a much better placement of images there. Those are not the only choices, so just to make this a little bit more thorough, let's examine some of the other choices we can make. Let's try moving this boat over a little bit closer to this one. You see, I put that one back in its original size and location. Let's try moving this one over now and see what happens. I'll let you watch me do this. Watch those spaces between here and here. Keep your eye, instead of just following the boat, you don't really see anything when you just follow the boat when it comes to placing images. But watch what happens between this space and this space as I move that boat a little bit closer in that direction. Move it just a little bit closer. Now see, we can begin to see it becoming a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more tension between the boat I'm moving and the one on the right as compared with the one on the left. How close can we move it before we've gone too far? Let's just keep moving. And you see, each time, in each position I put it in, it makes it a little bit more interesting. Let's try something. Let's bring it down just a hair. Let's bring it down just a little bit, and that brings it a little bit closer to us. And that makes the space a lot more interesting, because now we have sort of a triangular arrangement between this boat and this boat and this boat and that boat. You see that triangular path we've created there? It makes a much more interesting composition. And this boat, because it's so far in the distance and so close to the edge here, carries a lot of visual weight and really balances these two. Let's try something now just to show you what I'm talking about there. I'm going to bring this boat, I'm going to start bringing it over just gradually here. Now what I want you to watch for is the sense of balance when you look at the whole composition. The sense of balance, the closer this boat gets over here. I want you to notice what happens, because balance is something else that we're striving for when we're placing our shapes. We want to create an interesting spacing between shapes. We want to create an interesting visual path when we place those shapes. All three of these considerations are very important for every successful painting. Now watch that feeling of balance as I move this boat over. Now can you see it's begin to feel a little less balanced? I'm going to bring it on over and bring it on over. And now I'm going to bring it right over so they're equally spaced. And you see how uninteresting that's getting. As we take away that tension of the triangle, as we make that triangular path, two sides of the triangular path closer to each other, then it begins to not have the feeling of dynamics that it has when we have those unequal lengths in a triangular movement. I'm going to keep bringing it over. Keep bringing it over. Keep bringing it over. And you feel the topsy-turvy? And we have all these things clustered together like this with nothing really interesting going on the other side. Now, if that were a different format, yes, we might have a balanced piece. Now we see that in a square format, and we see that in a square format, it feels more balanced. It feels like we might have a nice composition. Now let's change that format a little bit more. That does help a little. It still feels a little crowded to me. Let's completely change the composition. Let's remove the boat on the right, take the boat on the left and switch it to the right, and take a little bit off the bottom. And now we have something we can live with. Look at what we've done. We've taken this scene, and by changing spacing, we've come up with 4 possibilities for a composition. Let's stop now and let you ask your questions. Okay, we're ready now. Ready to answer your questions. Was there anything in that little intro that stimulated your imagination or gave you other ideas or gave you questions? Have you been taught that there's certain rules you should follow when you're placing your images? And if so, do you wonder about that? Do you have questions about that? Was it a new idea to you that the placement in one format might not work in another format? Did you notice that? And vice versa. How sometimes a placement in one format that doesn't work will work in a different format. So the format, meaning the shape of your painting surface, is just as important to the concept of placing images as the actual activity of placing those images in that space is itself. So had you ever thought about that before? Ever wondered how the boat went off the top of the canvas? What boat went off the top of the canvas? The boat went off the top of the canvas. Is that okay? Oh, you mean the sail part of the boat. That's fine because that's not a major part of the it's not a major part of the image itself. The point of the sail, that was actually in that original photograph. That's the original photograph had cropped it so that the sail. That's fine because that's an anchor point. If you were trying to find the axis and the balance, that would be kind of a telltale, obvious place where the axis is. But because the major part of the shape is underneath that, not going off the top of the canvas, it doesn't cause a visual problem. It doesn't cause, as long as it doesn't, it's not, if it's disconcerting to you, the viewer, then, or you, the painter, then you need to change it. But as far as the overall balance and visual path and other things having to do with the overall composition, it works fine for taller things like that. Taller things like trees. A lot of times you'll see compositions where the tops of trees actually go off the top of the canvas, or you might see compositions where there'll be maybe a line of electric poles, and some of the ones in front might go off the top of the canvas. And we also know that major shapes, especially larger shapes, can go off the canvas. I say canvas, I mean painting surface. It's true it's true for all painting mediums and painting materials. But sometimes a major shape may just go off the surface on the sides, which is fine, because you've got to remember, every painting is capturing a portion of life. And sometimes, of course, even in still life, sometimes we can see a very beautifully composed still life has some of the images going off. So maybe, does that answer it, Mary? While I'm waiting for that. Cheryl asked, there should be a name for the phenomenon of working to keep something from the middle, and somehow it still ends up right smack in the middle. Well, the name is called repetition. Repetition of the same, what do they call it? Repetition of the same mistake or something like that. Mary says, maybe it just looks weird to me since it was in the middle of the canvas. Yes, you look at the overall canvas. There might be some things, and that wasn't to say that was an excellent composition. It was just saying that's one way to work. When we move the boat over to another side or whatever, we got that offset. And so it doesn't mean it's the strongest, but it just means if you were painting, you probably wouldn't want to give a lot of emphasis to that part that goes off the top. But when you're placing the image, I wouldn't, if I were painting something like that, I would de-emphasize the value contrast, and certainly value contrast mainly, and a part that goes off, and kind of gradually let it, as it comes down, let the contrast come forward. So it's okay. All right, let's see. Did I miss something there? Say Cheryl, that'll be a name for something. Yeah, Cheryl, you come up with a name. You come up with a name for that, and maybe we can have it put in the dictionary, huh? Hello, Marie. Haven't seen you for a long, long time. I'm glad you're with us today. Let's see. Ellen, no, Mary, where am I? I was thinking about that, and this is Ellen says, I was thinking about that, and that it must be okay because of the other boats. Yeah, there's a lot of things, when you're looking at the total composition, don't get stuck on one thing, because the way you pull the attention, the total composition, that's what's important. Other things can happen in there, and we as painters have ways of de-emphasizing areas if when we use that subject for our painting, if we put a contrast on the edge someplace that is causing our eye to go there, that's when we stop it, pull that contrast back, because it's going to be the value contrast more than anything else that's going to cause your eye into a place. I'm glad that came up. That's a really, really good thing, good observation, because it also tells us that we can be very, very flexible in the way we compose paintings, and we can take subjects, photographs that we take, photographs that other people take, that might not, and we can rearrange those shapes, and we don't have to necessarily make the image just like we've seen it in the photograph, just like we're seeing in the photograph. We can make some editing to how that image is presented, and that's not called artistic license. It's called good composing. Artistic I'm about to say something here, probably get me in trouble. I don't care. I'm used to being in trouble, and I don't mind. Sometimes I don't even try to get out of it. But anyway, I always think of artistic license as something you take when you don't know what you're doing. Okay, that was kind of nasty maybe, but anyway, there are things we do that are just plain good composing, or creative composing. Has nothing to do with artistic license. All right, here we go, Cheryl. I find placement to be one of the most difficult aspects of composition because there are so many variables as you've shown. What is the best way to begin to narrow it down, especially outdoors? Yeah, well, it's I think one of the best ways, Cheryl, is don't get caught up in rules. I know there are a lot of rules going around, and especially on YouTube. You must do this, you must do that. You must not do anything that is defiant to your nature. You know, if there's anything, if I could put an end to all this business about people thinking they got to follow rules in painting, if I could put an end to that before I leave this earth, that would be a wonderful mission. No, 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 no. Rules, no, no, no. Principles, cause and effect. If I do this, what will happen? That's what we pay attention to. And Cheryl, to answer your question, that's also what we're paying attention to when we're placing. Now, think about, and notice how I said that. I said, when things are equal in placement, when things are equal, we get bored looking at it. And when we have things that are unequal, it's a little bit more interesting for us to look at. In other words, it's how the human being responds to something that we are working with. We're not working with rules. So here's what I say about that. Just keep in mind when you go, first of all, start out, remember that, have I shown it on YouTube or was it one of our workshops? Where did I show how to use that little rectangle I make for myself when I go out painting? When I go out, plein air, painting, first thing I do is I do this. I get my hands like this and I just go around like this. Because especially if it's something that's just, oh man, wow, the whole thing is just wonderful and just making my heart pound, pound, pound. Well, here's what I do. I make myself a little window like this, like that. And if you pull it up close to you, you get a wider angle. You see more stuff. If you push it out away from you, get a telephoto view. It pulls stuff in. And then just go around like this and just look at what you're seeing. And when something hits you, that's your subject. Then within that, how can those things be placed so they're most dynamic? In other words, if you're looking at the interval of two edges that you will see there, remember your hand there becomes the edge of the canvas. The bottom thumb becomes the bottom of the canvas, and your imaginary line at the top there is the top canvas, painting surface, whatever we want to call it. Then that's what you work within. You work within that little space and very freely. And now what we're looking for within that space is trying to find a placement, how this places inside our little window we've got here, so that we don't have equal intervals, but so that we have unequal intervals, both horizontally and vertically. So, you know, if you see that landscape back there, then you can drop your hand down like this and say, yeah, I can give it a little bit more space at the bottom. Maybe I want the horizontal landscape to be kind of close to the top, or the other way around, where you might want to show less of the landscape at the bottom and more of whatever there is back there at the top. You get the idea. Just respond, allow yourself to respond, and then you set a strategy of what you're looking for. Let your strategy be keeping edges unequal. That's all you need to do. Just let your strategy be keeping edges unequal. And I might say here, let's see, like the vertical format, yeah, at the end of the two boats. I don't know why. Cheryl, how do you think that will work for you? And Ellen, yeah, now we don't have to know why. If it appeals to us, That's what we pay attention to, that it is appealing to us as painters. Sometimes we figure out why, sometimes we don't. But if we're looking at that, you know, when in that vertical format, we came in real close and we shut out a whole lot of the sea and the sky and pulled attention to the boat, and then because that's the way the thing set itself in space, then that top of the sail, I don't know, rig, what's that stuff called up there that goes mast, yes, thank you. That part becomes important now because that becomes, and that long part fits more snug, feels more comfortable in that long, skinny, vertical composition. So we can notice those things too. You know, what have we shut out? What are we pulling in? How are we looking at it? Okay, message retracted. Yeah. And then while I'm waiting for y'all to process, I have a problem in placement when setting was still alive. Mary. Okay, Mary, use the same principles. Use the same principles. Start out with one thing. Use stuff that you enjoy looking at. You know, if you're going to do still life, you don't want it to be dead life. And so use stuff you enjoy looking at. What do you enjoy looking at? And then begin to look how is it going to how is it going to work itself up in space? And you can use that same principle of this right here. Just use your two hands and your thumb. You can use that same principle. Is it going to work better in a horizontal format, or is it going to work better in a vertical format? Which is going to work better? And you can even do this sort of thing, kind of pull in on the skinny of it, or pull back. And sometimes a still life is so nice, depending on how it's arranged. Sometimes a really extreme horizontal format. Or did you notice in the very beginning of the video, I had one of Monet's early paintings that was in that flower business we saw in the very beginning of the video, where he had it in this very skinny, tall format. That's still life. So use that same principle where you don't try to figure it out intellectually, but just respond to it emotionally and intuitively, and put one image up there. Just put a bunch, and then begin to look at it like this, and see how you're gonna place that. Even do some little thumbnail drawings. You know, we can do that. You can use just a pad and just do little scribbles where you do just little thumbnail spaces, and you don't have to make intricate drawings. Just place the little shapes there and see how's it going to fit into space. And all you have to do is to look for, use as your strategy, unequal edges, unequal spacing of edges. Every shape has edges, outside edges and inside edges. When you put two shapes together, you've created a space between them, edge here and an edge here, whatever thing you have there. So you want to have unequal spacing between edges. That creates more dynamic, only because the human eye is more interested in exploring unequal spacing visually than it is equal. And if you might even think about music, in that music, how unequal spacing in the rhythm of music is much more interesting than absolutely the march, bump, 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 bump. Imagine every song you heard went just like that. You wouldn't want to listen to music very much anymore. Same thing. Okay, Cheryl, yes, wonderful answer. Oh, thank you. I think the key is strategy and consideration of what my intention is. Absolutely. I have a viewfinder, but sometimes I get to paint and maybe forget it. Hits the middle placement. Yeah. We need to take, don't forget your important tools. But yes, I think I like the word strategy rather than rule. If you start thinking about rules, don't rules sound stuffy? They've always sounded stuffy to me. And my first, maybe that's why as a kid in the first grade I spent so much time in standing in the corner. But yeah, rules are just so boring. Anyway, my strategy was to break the rule without getting caught. I'm going to make a sign for my easel saying unequal spacing. A good idea. Excellent. Anything we can do to remind ourselves. Yeah, that, and also remind yourself that we have these, you know, we have the rule of thirds. They call it rule of thirds. I hate that word. I hate that term. I hate it so bad because it sounds like something you've got to obey. Oh, it means that's just another strategy you can use for getting unequal spacing. That's all it means. It tells you where to put the unequal spacing, but it doesn't have to be there for it to be a really masterful painting. It doesn't have to be there. And also, we know that using the golden rectangle or the golden section, I'm not going to use the word rule, the golden ratio. We know if you know how that works, that gives you a wonderful spacing. That's what it's all about. It's about having a really pleasing spacing, a really intriguing spacing. But you don't have to follow that rule. You can just sort of maybe kind of guess at it. And also, the other things that you might have encountered, and in my courses too, strategies, the steel yard balance strategy, where we're looking the way we're balancing things according to where in a kind of an imaginary axis is. That too is placement, and that too is very intuitive. And then the rebattement. Remember that? Remember rebattement? Where if you have a rectangle, a good way, well, there's a lot of things you can do with rebattement that are really, really fun, but that is a strategy. It's not a rule, it's a strategy. Where when you have a rectangle, on either end of the rectangle there's a square, right? So it doesn't matter what the shape of the rectangle is. If you have a square on this end, and then whatever creates the rectangle on the other side, that portion where the square meets the rest of the rectangle is your rebatment. And you can do fun things with that, little conversations that you can set up in your paintings with it. Yeah, there's all kinds of fun fun strategies, but we don't have to know all of that in the beginning. If this is new to you, I think you find it very, very beneficial and a big payoff if you simply follow the strategy of unequal spacing, period, and not worry about anything else. And what are you spacing unequally? Edges. Outside edges and inside edges. Edges of shapes and edges between shapes. And edges between edges between a shape and the edge of your painting surface. So, I don't know, I kind of felt that like I was preaching a little bit there, but it's something that I get wound up about, as you folks know. Let's see, Ellen, suggestion of thirds. Okay, suggestion of thirds, like that. Suggestion of thirds, just an option, that's all. Okay, let's see. We have any other... Can you tell when I'm stalling, waiting for somebody to ask a question? Because we need to get a real good discussion going, don't you know? Anyway, have you noticed that how the same principles, I think I want to drive this one home. Are the same principles for how we place things apply to every single medium, every single painting and drawing medium? None of these principles we use for putting paintings together, which is what composing is, none of them have any, or none of them are exclusive to any medium. So when you're learning composing, how to put a painting together, that sort of thing, that it works in watercolor, it works in oil, it works in acrylic, it works in pastel, it works in gouache, it works with charcoal, it works with graphite, it works with collage, it works with mosaic. I could just keep going on and on. Same thing. And been doing that for like centuries and centuries. Every artist for centuries and centuries have been working with the same thing. So Ellen says, I forget all the strategies when I go outside. Don't try to remember them all. Just remember one: unequal spacing. That's all you have to remember. Go outside, enjoy the experience. Don't make it a tiring and drudgery. experience of drudgery. Don't do that to yourself. Go out and enjoy it. Just simply remember unequal spacing. That's all you have to remember. And what are you spacing unequally? Edges. And if you just write down those two words, unequal and edges. And that's all you got to remember, honest. And then anytime you want to, when you've got leisure and you want to play with, that is a strategy. Unequal edges is a strategy, period. Anytime you want to play with those others, rule of thumbs, rebatment, golden mean, blah, 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 steel yard balance, blah, 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 blah. You want to play with those sometimes when you're not really trying to enjoy painting. You just want to have something to occupy your space. Just go, maybe you just feel like doodling around a little bit. Let's doodle around and see if I can take one image and let's get out my list of strategies here so I have it right here beside me. I can just check it off. I don't have to remember it. And play with it sometimes if you want to, but there's nothing that says you have to know all that stuff. Nothing. Just unequal spacing. Cheryl says, I remember the placement workshop where you showed painting by Norman Rockwell, where the subject in the middle, yet your eye is drawn around because of the angles. That's right. That's right. Sometimes, after we get accustomed to working with images in a bit more relaxed way, like I'm trying to emphasize in this, we can begin to play with images, play with, can I place something in the middle and get away with? That's the question, well, that was a very, very serious painting Rockwell gave us there. But it was playful. Rockwell was being playful when he did it because he was getting away with something that wasn't allowed. Placing the main subject right in the middle, well, you just don't do that. But how you draw the attention to these things, that becomes something that we begin to kind of work with after we get really accustomed to working with the flexibility of how these things work. You can equate that with learning how to cook. You really can. You can equate that with learning how to cook. If maybe, oh gosh, I'm going to get myself real deep into it because I don't cook that much. But I do watch lots of cooking shows because I think they're fun. But if you're just trying to learn how to boil an egg or fry an egg, you don't want to try to make an omelet your very first try. And I think we could have probably applied those things. So yes, by all means, what happened to my chat? by all means, relax with the simple principles, and then if you want to play with some playful things that you have seen other artists do, at least by relaxing with simple ones, you begin to understand what other artists are doing. You're looking at Rockwell's work, or looking at Andrew Wyatt's work, or looking at Richard Schmid's work, or you can go down the list of the greats that we have had among us, and some that we have among us today. Then you can begin to see those things. Ellen, me too, smile. Oh, smiley face, me too. Cheryl, Ellen. Okay. Y'all, that was you talking to Ellen. It wasn't talking to me, were you? Okay, Cheryl says, does value, contrast, and hue, saturation, etc. affect placement too? If you place something oddly, but use color or saturation to draw the eye, is a part of the placement? Okay, yes. How we place the emphasis of what we're placing, it makes a big difference. Now, at first we're just placing, we're assuming in this lesson today, we're just looking at the values and the colors as we see them. And you notice I didn't talk about that. I didn't talk about how we would change that. I was just using what was there as its value in the contrast, in the value contrast it was in the colors, hues, saturation, etc. that it was in. We're just looking at the concept of the strategy of placing, what we need to do, what we can do, some options we could explore in the placement itself. But when we're composing, when we're working with images ourselves, then we can begin to look at how the placement is affected by the degree of value contrast, by the degree of hue saturation, even by the size, but the degree of value contrast, and the sizes, how large things are, how much emphasis they get by their size, or how small, are the textures of things. Things that are more textured get more attention, things that are less textured, less, and how they affect. So we can begin to mix. These are visual elements I'm talking about. The visual elements, what make up the visual elements, those things that make up everything we see, they too affect the total composition, and they affect how we place the total composition. For example, just think back to the video I showed you at the beginning. Remember that little chip that's over on the extreme left, and I had it very, very tiny, and it was almost going off the edge, right at the edge, and I pointed out how it caused weight, visual weight, and it was kind of showing visually the feeling. It was all about feeling of balance. As we pull it over closer to the bigger ship, it didn't carry that visual weight anymore. And that was just kind of a fun thing to explore. Now, if that same ship had been over there in the same location, but not anything like it's dark, if there had been fog, if there had been atmospheric fog, and it had been decreasing the value of that ship, and we saw it as very close in value, it wouldn't carry anything like the weight, the visual weight that it carries in its current contrast, value contrast. That was the value contrast. Now, of course, we know that the more saturated colors have more visual weight and cause more attention to. That's what we mean. Where does I go first? That's exactly what we mean when we say visual weight. It's not something we invent and try to do. It's what does the eye do? You know, how much visual weight does that orange sun have here as compared to this guy under the tree reading right there? You see that the guy, can you see, does your eye go there? Or your eye going to me? Is your eye going to the sun? Where does your eye go first? Close your eyes and just close your eyes and then open them real quick and say, where's your eye going first there? Can anybody tell me that? Well, that's visual weight. Generally where your eye goes first, the visual weight. But nothing can happen without the visual elements. They're what causes stuff, you know? So, and you know, you have to, it's like the parts of speech. You couldn't communicate one bit without a part of speech. You just go around grunting all the time. If you didn't have parts of speech. And don't have to know what they are, but like, you know, if I drink out of this cup, I've used a part of speech when I tell you what I've done. Even if I pick up this cup, I've used parts of speech. If I pick it up, I'll tell you what I've done. I pick up this cup. I, me, that's pronoun, parts of speech, pick up, whatever, you know the list. All right, so our visual language is the same way, works the same way. Our visual language, what we call the visual elements, those are our parts of visual speech. What are they? They are, you know them, I don't have to tell you, shapes a visual element, texture is a visual element, color is a visual element, value is a visual element, size is a visual element. Oh gosh, I'm going to always leave out one. Direction, the way things go, that's a visual element. And then line is a visual element. So that's our part of speech. Well, how we use them is going to, it always determines how to the degree to which the eye is attracted to them. And the degree to which the eye is attracted to them is what determines how we arrange that stuff on our painting surface. It's a beautiful thought. If you think about it, it's all about cause and effect. Remember what I said earlier? It's all about cause and effect. Oh, good, I got some answer here. All right, so Mary's eye goes to the sun. Okay, that's pretty close to me. See how saturated that sun is, and see how saturated the yellow sky is around it? And Ellen's eye goes to the guy in tree. All right, so you see how strong the value contrast is there? So Ellen's eye goes to the valley, the guy in the tree. Mary's eye went to the sun. Nobody's eye went to me. Huh. No, Roger. He just took me out. Yeah, you see there? Now, the fact that one person's eye might go to one thing first and another person's eye might go to the second thing first may be a matter of individual uniqueness. The important thing is that you as artists create your composition according to what your eye is doing. You don't worry about anybody else's eye because there could be some people can't even see it at all. And you don't even worry about that. Don't worry at all. Just respond to what you're doing according to how you perceive it and what you know about what happens when these visual elements start getting mixed up together and doing stuff. All right, let's see here. Now the guy in the book are pulling my eye, Mary Ellen. Yeah, you really start, this is that kind of thing, you start looking at it, then it's going to start playing tricks on you, right? Yeah, I think the size of the sun, and its strong saturation does have a real pull to it. But also that white book in that black shape of the boy has a lot of pull to it too. If you look though, you see the small light, the small value contrast there of the small white against the black of the boy. And then if you look at the sun, you see, where am I? Over here. If you look at the sun, it's very, very large. So there might be a discrepancy there. That might not be the best composition. If some people's eyes are going to the sun and some people's eyes are going to the boy, maybe it's because I'm sitting in front of it. Because I think, Roger, you want to take me out again just for a minute?
Yeah.
Just to show, take me out of there just for a minute. Let me show them what we're talking about. Because I'm breaking up. Let's look at that now. See what change that made when I got out of it? See now you're feeling that darker part go down, the darker connection of the boy. The black part is going down in front, and it feels. And now we can see those birds that are flying towards us, and they sort of repeat that contrast of the dark of the earth, kind of in silhouette is the idea there, I think. But it becomes, to my eye, without me in it, it becomes a more balanced piece. But when Roger puts me back in it, I break it up. So we've added a visual element that doesn't really belong to that composition. You want to put me back in there now? Can I please be there? Yeah. So that was a fun little experiment, wasn't it? It goes to show you that everything matters visually. Everything that goes into a composition or a painting visually, everything has got its own role. It's got its own thing to do, and it's what we do with it. Mary says, funny until you mentioned it, I didn't even see the book. And then To the Flying Birds. Atelier CVK. Who is that? I'd like to know more about the Atelier. Anyway, okay, do you have any more questions? What do you think you're going to do with this discussion now? I know those of you, we have another thing we do as a part of our whole program. Claudia, okay.
That's right.
You gave me a bit you had yourself camouflaged a bit there. Well, thank you, Claudia. A part of our overall program is a workshop I do, a live stream workshop I do every month. Now sometimes that doesn't even get out to the all our folks on YouTube and on the mailing list because the workshop fills up before everybody gets a chance, before it reaches everybody. But we do every month. I have a live stream workshop, and the way we do that is we really focus our attention on one day. The workshops are usually on Wednesday. We really focus our attention on a single subject, and all the courses we have on the academy are taken from the lessons on the website, on the workshop. Anyway, those of you who are going to attend the workshop that's coming, that's like 3 days from now, on the 18th. That one is about intervals, and that one's going to be an expansion of what we reviewed today. So those of you who are with us today and who are taking the workshop, you're going to be a heads up there. I almost feel sorry for folks that haven't watched the chat and are going to be taking the workshop. You got a heads up, so be keen Wednesday. Show us your stuff. All right, let's see. I went to the questions from Mary, and then I'm not supposed to say that. I definitely see Mary Ellen. Did we do something there?
I did that.
Okay.
It's up there in the questions.
Oh.
Question Mary.
Mary and Ellen. Okay, we got Mary and we got Ellen and we got Mary Ellen. Yeah, and Roger kind of blended y'all together there for a little while. Well, there we have our own kind of composing, don't we? All right, folks. Okay, they got a kick out of that. Okay, folks. No more questions. I don't see any reason to sit here and shoot bull for, 4 minutes we've got left just to fill up space. But if you don't have, if I don't see another question coming in within the next 4 breaths I take, that's going to be it. So good questions, and it just really, the questions that those of you who asked really gave us a good format for fleshing this stuff out and showing how relaxed we can be about it and how creative we can be. And we don't have to remember anything except one thing, one set of things. Ellen says, thank you so much, we're going to remember unequal spacing. That's all. And try different formats. Hey, that would be so much fun, wouldn't it? If you just did that, different kinds of formats, and just that's all you're doing is unequal spacing. There's so much fun stuff we can do with painting if we just don't take it too seriously and don't get too concerned about what's going to be shown and all this kind of stuff. Let's just enjoy. Let's enjoy the journey. Life's too short to get all uptight about anything that's creative. All right, and then that is going to be the end of today. I thank you all for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next month. We're going to do the third Sunday again next month. Roger, do you know? Haven't checked. We'll be here either the third or the fourth Sunday, but we'll give you enough heads up, enough time in advance so that you'll know when to come. We'll have that announced. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Switzerland.
And
Ciao from Switzerland.
Switzerland. Claudius from Switzerland. Somehow I think I knew that. All right. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day, evening, morning, wherever you are. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye for now.